How would you like to learn the secrets of two Karma Club Award winners on how they have built successful online businesses from almost nowhere to now running multiple 7 and 8 figure businesses by following the simple fundamentals of life? And let's see how they have used the powerful funnel systems, processes, automation, and social media to help their business grow at a different pace. Let's dive into their journey to grasp the strategy, mindset, action plan of how they have done it from almost nowhere to the way up to 7 figures. We are going to uncover and pick their brains of the top performing entrepreneurs on this show. How they have done it and how you can do it too. You are listening to the Nikhil Sai, the host, and welcome to the Nikhil Sai Show.
What's going on? What's going on? And who's actually listening to this podcast right now? First of all, guys, welcome to the Nikhil Sai Show, which is hosted by me, the Nikhil Sai. And guess what's going on today? We are back with another amazing guest. This dude is an amazing person when it comes to the funnels, well known. He's been working with industry experts. Now we're having a 2CC winner, which is freaking amazing. I mean, we're talking about someone who has done over $260 million in sales for his clients overall from 2006 when he started his agency and where he's helping people with websites, funnels, and all of this crazy marketing. He's been working with top industry experts like you name it, he got it. Tony Robbins, James Rizzi, Russell Brunson, everyone in the industry who is at an elite level. And I mean, this journey will absolutely blow you away if you're someone who is from ClickFunnels community who understand funnels. This will be a golden, valuable interview. So, guys, let's not waste any time and actually let's welcome Bryan Dulane, CEO at Perfect Funnel System. Hey, Bryan.
Welcome, welcome. Great to be here with you today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for making our time for this quick podcast, Bryan. And to mention, guys, Bryan is one of the very first two Comma Club winners, very first two Comma X winners, and very first two CC winners as well. So he's been very deeply, inside the ClickFunnels community. And to mention, he's one of the top affiliates of ClickFunnels, where he has generated over $500,000 in ClickFunnels commission, just like that, which is freaking awesome. Bryan, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, it's great to be here with you. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. And I've given like a quick backdrop of what you have done, but we would love to go through like a backstory. Like, how did all of this crazy journey started for you, Bryan?
Yeah, so, without being here for hours, which we could be here if I went through my whole journey, I grew up, my great-grandfather was an inventor, and then my dad was an entrepreneur, brought together buyers and sellers in the supply chain technology industry. Literally, companies became billion-dollar brands because of my dad and his show.
Wow.
And so I was able to be raised in that environment, which was amazing. I was always an entrepreneur, though. I mean, as a little kid, even at 3, I one night unscrewed every screw in the crib, and my parents found me on the floor the next morning. And I swear I must have said, in that moment, I said, I'm never going to be put in a box again. And that just goes to speak to really who I am. But fast forward, I was going on a journey to figure out like what am I going to do with my life. This was back in college. I was at Liberty University, trying to figure out my purpose, my plan, how I was going to monetize how I was going to make money, and how I was going to provide for my family, how I was going to build the life of my dreams, and how I was going to serve people. And I kind of stumbled into internet marketing. I stumbled into it through a challenge where it was about how to make your first dollar online in 30 days by being an affiliate. And literally, I signed up. It was $1. I signed up, and over the course of 7 days, my first 7 days from buying my domain name to launching it, I had an email that came through that said you made a sale, and it was set for $750.
Wow.
And that became real for me. It became even more real when I showed it up, show up in my PayPal account, right? But that's when it became real, and then I went on a journey and went really deep on how can I reproduce this every day, and then how can I reproduce this 10 times a day, and so forth, right? Because I figured if I can do this, I was pretty part-time. I mean, it was a couple hours of work. I was like, man, if I could do this every day, I'd make $250,000 a year part-time, not have the confines of being stuck in a dead-end job, and have freedom. And so that's what drove me to go deeper. And then really early on, I realized that I didn't get my second degree black belt in Taekwondo by watching YouTube videos. Like, that's ridiculous, right? I had a sensei for 7 years to get my second degree black belt in Taekwondo. I had to show up at the dojo 3 days a week, and I had to, I did competitions, and I went through tests and all types of challenges through, getting my second degree black belt. And so I'm so grateful that I had that realization early on, because a lot of people never come to that conclusion that they can do it all themselves, or they got to go like study everything and learn everything and know everything before they ever get started. And so I'm grateful that I didn't do that. I did do a lot of studying and researching, and I bought books and attended events and bought courses, and I did all of that. But what really changed the game and made this internet marketing journey predictable and repeatable for me was when I found a mentor. And so I found a mentor. He was out of Australia at the time, and he was doing multiple six figures a month, serving clients between 6 to 10,000 a month range, and then also making six figures a month as an affiliate, supporting and promoting other people's stuff. So I loved his model. And in fact, he didn't even have a coaching program. He had a bonus for one of his products he was promoting as an affiliate, and I got a free hour call with him. And the call was so good. I said, "Hey man, would you be interested in coaching me? Like, I need mentorship. I need coaching. I need more of this hour. Like, the hour was great, but I need more of these type of calls." He's like, "Well, I don't do that. Like, I don't have that. That's not my business." Like, I'm like, "Well, like, here's $5,000. Like, let's make it a part of your business. And I just want a couple hours of your time, and I'll be good." And mind you, at the time, this was a stretch for me. I was living on student debt, and I was making $15 an hour part-time as a personal trainer, enough to like buy clothes, dinners, and have a little bit of fun. Like, nothing groundbreaking at all. I had a little bit of affiliate success, but it wasn't repeatable or reproducible at all. So I needed this help. I mean, it was dramatic. And from that advice, I got on consulting calls with him, and he said, "Listen, do this, follow, do this, do that, do this, do that, do this, do that." I followed his advice and literally launched a campaign with $500, and I made 20,000 in sales, 10,000 in commissions in 3 days. And in that moment, I was like, okay, I figured it out. I literally quit I was working on my MBA, oddly enough, working on my degree in entrepreneurship. And the reason I was doing that was because I was trying to delay the inevitable student loan debt. So at that moment, I was like, you know what? I don't need that anymore. I'm making more than my business teachers in my MBA are making in months. I made that happen in 3 days, very part-time. So that's what, I quit my MBA. I fired my teachers, I always say. And then I went full-time in my business and went really deep on mastering affiliate marketing. And then from there, I ended up starting a service model, because people asked me, like, "Hey, can you do that for my business?" I was like, "Well, I don't know. Okay, I guess I can. I do it for people as an affiliate, and when I sell stuff, I make money." I never even thought, in the beginning of my career, I never even thought about doing it as a service, because I didn't know how to get clients. I didn't know how to present proposals. I didn't know all that. But very quickly, I landed my first client with the help of my mentor, and it was an $8,000 a month contract, and we helped that company do over 20 million in that year. And so that's what really got me into the game a lot deeper, was both being an affiliate and then also servicing others.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Brian. I think I really love the way you actually had your, everything inside the marketing side when it comes to, you got that experience from affiliate marketing and the way you can shift it into the service business. That's beautiful. I mean, Brian, you've been launching and scaling, hundreds of funnels of especially these elite level people, and you've been looking behind the scenes of how these hundreds of millions of dollars are happening through the funnels you have built, right? So can you, as I don't think anyone else can answer the question like you do, especially as a funnel expert, can you walk through the little bit of psychology behind sales funnel? Like how does a real sales funnel function?
Yeah, sure. And we help all people. We help people, we work with people at a high level like Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, Russell Brunson, but we also work with people that are brand new, that have an expertise. Well, one thing I'll say that's been critical to the explosive growth that we've had in the last probably 7 years, because I've been doing this since 2006. So, over 15 years, I would say was when I got really clear who I serve, and then only serve those people. So, that's where, experts come in that are an expert, and they've been able to produce results for themselves. Maybe they've been able to help a few other people, but then they're really ready to take it to the next level. And so that's really truly who we serve. Sometimes we support people like Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi and Russell Brunson by promoting their stuff because they have great stuff, right? It's easy to promote people who have great stuff, right?
Yeah.
And that really boils down to a key of success, right? You got to have a really great offer. Um, Russell always says, right, you're one funnel away. I would actually say first you're one offer away, and then that leads you to a funnel. But if you don't have a good offer, then who cares about the funnel? You don't need to worry about funnels. If you have a really great offer, then you build a funnel around the offer, and you have success. A sales funnel, to go back to the original question, is really a process. In my view, I created what's called a perfect funnel system. And what that is it's a way of capturing leads, converting sales, and creating a tribe and community of raving fans. A sales funnel is just that. It's how do you capture leads on the internet? How do you build a relationship with those people in order to make an offer and convert sales so you can serve people deeper? And then beyond that, which is where a lot of people stop. They stop there. They just focus on lead generation and selling, which is super shallow thinking. The brands that are worth billions, not millions, but billions, focus a lot further than that. Like, think a lot longer than that. And they think about the community, the culture, the tribe. Look at ClickFunnels, right? I mean, I've known Russell for over a decade now, before he started ClickFunnels. And, what's the difference between ClickFunnels and a lot of other funnel platforms? Well, a lot of other funnel platforms haven't been able to produce 120 million a year like he has, right? They haven't had evaluations of $500 million, right? What is the unique differentiation? I think a lot of it has to do with the tribe, the community, the culture.
Yep.
Where a lot of the other brands focus on lead acquisition and conversion. So they're just focused on traffic and conversion versus thinking about the lifetime value of the customer and thinking about the tribe, the culture, the success of that culture. So I think that kudos to Russell for that, because he's done such a great job. And it's really not just Russell, it's Dave, it's the whole crew. I mean, there's over 200 employees over there. It's the whole crew. And that's really a really important point. Russell, about 3 years into ClickFunnels, he realized that only about less than 1% of the people in his community were actually doing over $1 million through a funnel. And I believe he had an epiphany. And that was when he said, it's not about what, and it's not about how, it's about who. Who's in your corner helping you? He said, I didn't build ClickFunnels by myself. That's ludicrous. I've got over 200 employees that help me, that helped us to get to where we are. Right. And so I want you to think about that as you're listening to this today. It's not about what and how. You can have all the head knowledge, but not have the results and the outcome and the impact.
Yeah.
And if you try to do everything yourself, you're likely not going to be successful. You'll likely fail, and you'll likely take yourself out of the game. I've seen a lot of people take themselves out of the game for a number of reasons, but that's definitely one of them. And once you realize that, okay, who's on my team? Whether it's in your team in terms of employment, whether you hire people, bring them in, or you align yourself with agencies and people that are the best in the world at what they do, and combine it with what you're great at. That's the recipe for success. I've built literally over 20 brands that have done anywhere from over $1 million, so $1 million, 10 million, 25 million plus. The common denominator of that, in fact, I was just recording an episode for the podcast today about the 11 common denominators there. One of them is that they didn't try to do it themselves. They realized that to get to where they want to go, they need other people at the table that are smarter than them. Kind of like Henry Ford, right? Henry Ford, when challenged about his intelligence, said, I have a row of push buttons on my desk that I can call on the person that I need to answer that silly question at any time I want, which showed his intelligence.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. I think that's all about getting resourceful with with the people you have. Maybe you hire them, maybe you have in their team, maybe you create a partnership, but that's how you do things. Thank you for that quick answer, Bryan. Let's get to the next question. I mean, you've been launching hundreds of sales funnels, so you certainly know like how things can go wrong, especially launching sales funnels, right? So can you talk a little bit more about like what most funnels have wrong, like what most people do wrong when it comes to launching a sales funnel?
I think what most people, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. It's big doors swing on small hinges. So it's usually a lot of little things that add up to what creates the problem. I think if you're going to, though, kind of zoom out at a stealth bomber perspective, which is 50,000, they typically fly at 50,000 feet elevation. You look at that level down, I think it's really about the campaign. What's the core message? What's the core hook that stands out in the marketplace or blends in, right? I think most campaigns don't stand out and they don't resonate deeply with an ideal audience, because most people don't know who their ideal audience is on a deep level. They very, very superficially know. I mean, I've done over 500 private one-on-one sessions where I spend a day with people to map out a 7 and 8 figure business. And I would say 99% of the time, those people have no clue on a deep level who they serve.
Wow.
And that's a problem. That's a problem, because how do you message an audience that you don't know? Right? So think about social media, and most of the time we're scrolling, and whatever catches our attention is what commands us to stop and pay attention. So at a high level, campaigns that don't work don't cause you to stop and don't capture your attention. Most campaigns that aren't successful aren't captivating the attention, aren't causing the user to stop in their tracks and go deeper. Now, as the constant process is always, what are the narratives you're sending out into the market? What is the core message behind your campaigns? What's the hooks that are getting people to stop in their tracks and go deeper, right? And literally just by making a few adjustments in just your headline alone, we've seen dramatic campaign shifts where we might be doing a 22% opt-in rate where we flip it to 50% opt-in rates by just the change of a headline.
Wow.
So like I said, it's not always these big glaring issues like the aesthetics are terrible. In fact, aesthetics don't actually matter in the grand scheme of things as it relates to a funnel as much as you would think it would. I know and have friends that have, over $10 million businesses that have really bad looking funnels. And you would look at it and you would say, that aesthetic is trash. Like, that's disgusting. You'd be like, there's no way this thing that produces revenue. Meanwhile, they're some of the most successful marketers in the entire space. So it's not always such an easy as just to say, well, if you improve your brand, you improve everything, because that's not true. It really boils down to what's the campaign narrative that you're sending out, and what's getting people to stop, and what's getting people to go deeper. Did you know that 40% of people that look at a website or a landing page, 40% of people that they'll look at the headline and decide whether they're going to stay and go deeper or leave based on the headline alone? 40%.
Wow.
So I would say that headline is really important.
Yeah.
That's a very important critical component.
Yep, absolutely, Brian. I mean, guys who are listening right now, we are talking to the top 1% of the experts in the marketing field entirely. And you know what's wrong? What's going wrong in your business? It's your messaging. So make sure that your messaging is always on point whenever it comes to ads, funnels, your core offer. Make sure your messaging is on point and it's hitting your right audience, because you can't scale up or you can't have success without the right messaging. Pretty awesome, Brian. And Brian, I mean, when we look at your company, that's where we see like the perfect funnel system. So you've been like doing the perfect funnels over and over and over repeatably, consistently for all of your clients and in your businesses too, right? So can you kind of walk us through the kind of system you actually have, like how to actually launch a perfect funnel system? How does that look like?
Well, typically it's a number of things, right? So it's, a perfect funnel system is really a philosophy of capturing leads, converting sales, and creating a tribe and community of raving fans. And it's a step-by-step process. In terms of launching a perfect funnel system, for me and the people that I serve, it's not one thing. It's not one funnel. It's typically more than one. It's typically a brand, and it's typically a website, and it's typically funnels, like a webinar or a challenge or a book or a summit or some type of campaign that allows us to capture leads and develop a deeper relationship by adding value. And then a strategic process of selling that's not pushy, but rather consultative of nature, and really more of making an offer in a way that makes sense for people that say yes versus no. So when we launch a perfect funnel system, if you will, it's what I want to communicate here is that it's not one funnel. It's not one thing. For example, we had a client that launched a challenge and the challenge didn't do that well. But simultaneously, we also ran side by side of that an application funnel that led to high ticket sales. And they did so well with high ticket sales that they literally said to us, well, if doing, crappy challenges that don't profit bring in a lot of high ticket clients, then I'm going to keep doing these crappy challenges. And really what that means is, number one, you don't have to do crappy challenges if they're architected strategically. And it's not always about being architected strategically, because again, there's little hinges swing big doors.
Yeah.
It's a lot of the nuance. A lot of the coaching that I do is around communication strategy, right? 70% of communication is nonverbal. So what is it your body's communicating, not just your mouth? A lot of people think that just what they're saying is what they're communicating. And they're missing the picture there. They're missing the whole, the point. Your body is communicating your message. So how are you showing up in relationship to the narrative of your campaign? So for me, I always have the core elements of a perfect funnel system, right? Where we have something to capture leads. We have something, and usually it's multiple channels of ways of building our database: phone, email, different mechanisms. So what are we putting out into the marketplace that we're going to use to get people to come into our world? Then what are we using to add value, develop a relationship, provide inspiration? Beyond that, it's how are we making offers, and what are the offers that we're making? And how do we make them irresistible? Or I like to call them DAOs, which represents what I call a dumbass offer. Meaning when someone sees it, they say to themselves, I got to be a dumbass to say no to this thing. That's what a DAO is. So if you create your offers in a way that the conclusion in the minds of the people that you're serving, they say to themselves, I got to be dumb to say no, then you're going to have more people say yes than no. Well, to get to that place, you really have to put together an offer in a way that really truly serves and supports people. And when you put together an offer in a way that truly serves and supports people, then people will say yes.
Absolutely.
People are saying no to your offers because they don't believe you can serve them the way that you're selling it. Now, it makes your job infinitely easier if you have what I call a mountain of evidence, where you can point to the outcomes that other people have that are like those people that are listening.
Wow.
Right? And so I always recommend that if you don't have the results for others, then become obsessed about going and getting them. Because that's going to help you so much when it comes to selling and making offers, that it stands on its own without you having to make an emotional, salesy, pitchy close. You shouldn't have to do that. Okay, that's old school. That's very old school, low level thinking. We want to elevate your consciousness here. You don't have to sell that way. That's old school. That's like talking to 100 people and closing one, right? Well, what if you could talk to 10 and close 8? There's a much more strategic way of selling than having a throw mud up against the wall strategy, which is the old model of selling, right?
Yep.
Very bad way of selling. That's why people have such a negative association with selling, when in reality, selling is being of service to others. So selling is something that you should not resist, but it's something that you should embrace. Because if you truly care about the outcomes that you are promising and the outcomes of your people, then you're doing them a service by making that offer. And I think when you sell it that way, from that perspective, selling becomes a lot easier. So from selling, then what's the journey you take them through fulfillment to then create them into and turn them into a raving fan who shout to the rooftop about what you do and send you more people. And then eventually you get to a place in your career and in your business where the snowball effect kicks in, where the ball is rolling down the hill and momentum is building. And that's a great place to be once you get there.
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. I think that's a beautifully articulated, and the way you actually demonstrated how offers are really important when it comes to the business. Because if you have like a really great offer which can serve the right people, I mean, you don't even need a fancy funnel. All you could say is, you go on a Facebook Live, you say that, hey, this is my PayPal, send me if you're okay, and the offer is really good, they'll pay you, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, that's on point, brother. Thank you so much. And Brian, let's get to the next question. I'm pretty curious and excited to hear this answer. So, I mean, as a service agency too, I mean, I understand that you come from an affiliate marketing background and you jump into services and you've been scaling through that roof, right? So, how did you manage to scale over multiple eight figures as a service agency? Like, how did you actually manage that scale? How was the journey along the way?
Well, so there's a lot, it's a long, kind of long-winded question, and I'll summarize for you, but it really boils down to the team, right? So we're more of a boutique agency, where, early on I decided that I didn't want to be a factory. I would rather have really highly qualified people that are really gifted and brilliant in their specific function, whether it be copywriting or branding or video filming and production or tech, and all of the major components that are necessary for launching and scaling scaling a business. Running ads is a whole nother, bucket where you've got like specific channels that people are typically great at. You don't typically find one person who's great at every platform, right? So about 2015, that's when I started that process of refining the team. And, now we're over 20 people that are on the team that are specific in their function and that are the best in the world at what they do. For example, my head of branding has done 38 of the top Fortune 100 companies in the world in some form or fashion in terms of brand.
Wow.
So it's boutique. And those people you can't hire typically. Like, you're not going to be able to hire that person and have them be only a part of your company, because you need to pay someone like that, over $1 million a year. So there's a relationship that goes into that that's different than normal. Most agencies are either A, outsourced to other countries, or B, they hire lower level people than themselves. So they never really have explosive growth, because if you're building a business that's outsourced overseas, typically the expertise of the owner is going to be superior than the rest of the organization.
True.
And it's hard to control that ship. So that usually is not that successful. The second level up from that is like building a company where you hire people and you train people. Well, you're not going to find a really great copywriter unless you're paying them $15,000 to $20,000 a month. Okay.
True.
I'm talking about really great copywriters, and most agencies aren't they don't have the capacity to pay for all the roles and functions that they need of people that need to earn $15,000 to $20,000 a month. So they're not ever going to find that they can't build that model unless they have bankroll to fund it.
Yeah.
Right? If they have the bankroll to fund it, then they can do it. But you don't see people doing that, because another thing that comes into play is that now you have the owner of the business now having people that are smarter than them, and usually there's ego conflict. Usually that battle there.
That's true.
So I'm just giving you the real perspective on like kind of the ecosystem of the agency model. What I found is that, number one, we do things very differently, where it's performance based. So we share in the profit of the campaigns. There's fee to cover time, but there's also percentage of profit. So that's why, we have clients that have paid us out over $1 million as profit partnerships, where most agencies will never make $1 million from one partnership or one contract in their life, let alone their entire year from their whole business. So we have that, and then we've diversified our portfolio of clients. So we have, we're in every sector, almost every sector. So it's a very different animal than most agencies in that capacity.
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. I think that's so beautifully articulated. I mean, you should always have people in your team who are higher level than you, especially when it comes to like this little specific task, so that we can actually do the task at a very higher level. I think that brings us to the next question, Brian. I mean, you've been able to hire the higher level people because you could say that's the first thing is the relationship you have between them. The second thing is like the pay you are actually giving them to, right? So as an agency, if you're willing to kind of pay big money for your team, you should be able to have bigger budget clients who are pumping in good money too while you're actually giving that back, right? So can you talk a little bit more about like your client acquisition process, like attracting higher level clients as a marketing company, like how you have been very successful at building clients where you're having partnerships where you're at least getting like $1 million check like continuously from your clients?
Yeah, I mean, it's multifaceted, multi-channel. So we don't just
Mm-hmm.
advertise on one channel, but we advertise multi-channel. And then we also create campaigns that attract the type of person that we want to work with. For example,
Mm.
my wife and I launched what's called the free golden ticket, and you can see it at
Mm.
freegoldenticket.com, where we created a campaign around, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, right? So my idea behind that, and my wife created the theme, but my idea was I want to create something that's disruptive, that stops the scroll, but is creative where someone would see it and say, I want that creativity on my business.
Yeah.
And that's how the free golden ticket was born, was out of that question. How do we stand out like a sore thumb? And two, how do we infuse creativity where the people that we serve would say, I want that creativity on my business? And it was very successful. Campaign still runs to this day.
Wow.
It's based on, it's a USB drive with some of our award-winning funnels, emails, and scripts that have generated 7 and 8 figures. And people get to download them after they put the hard drive in their computer, and they can see and model success. They can see what a successful funnel and campaign looks like under the hood. That was the whole
Yeah.
concept. And then we built into it, 5 lucky winners could come to the Profit Factory, just like the movie, right? Where 5 lucky winners would go to the Chocolate Factory. We called it the Profit Factory. They had the everlasting gobstopper. We had the everlasting funnel, right? So we were able to, you really use a play on words and and leverage the theme that everyone knows to get in front of an audience. And most people in our community have seen that campaign because we pushed it in front of their feeds, right? That's one example of how we get in front of our ideal audience. There is 10 to 15 other examples of different ways that we get in front of our audience, but that's one of our examples, is providing content and creating campaigns that attract your ideal customer.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
and I think
beautiful. Yeah.
as a business, you need to be in that activity of adding value to your marketplace, providing wisdom and insight and knowledge to help people on their journey. When you do that, you're naturally going to, when you give, you're naturally going to receive, right? It's a biblical principle. So when you plant, you're going to reap a harvest. Now, depending on what you plant is based on what you're going to reap. So
Yeah.
when you plant good seeds, then you're going to reap a good harvest. And what you're putting out into the marketplace, whether it be advertising or content, what you're putting out and how you're serving is going to dictate how you're going to attract those different types of people that you're serving. For me, in the last decade, literally, I haven't had our whole entire business has been attraction marketing. So it's based on putting messages out rather than pushing messages, like going door to door, going to events, or pushing messages into people's message boards or whatever, right? Push marketing has its place, right? Pushing direct mail into mailboxes is a push marketing concept. Whereas pull marketing is you send messages out to attract people to you who they raise their hand and say, I want to do business with this person, or I want to do business with this team.
Yeah.
Okay. If you don't, in my opinion, you don't have a business unless you're able to stand on your own and attract people to you.
True.
And that's where you have to figure out for you. And it should be different and unique than anyone in your marketplace. That's why it's important to ask this question. How are you better, different, and unique than anyone in your market? And you should be able to answer that really quickly. How are you different, better, and unique than anyone in your marketplace?
Yeah.
And then you use that as a way of bringing people to you based on those strengths that you have. You lead with that. That's a selling advantage, right? But you first have to know, how are you better, different, unique than anyone else in your market? So you have to study your competitors and know how you're better than they are. Now, the way that I've always done is I always led with proving it, right? So that's why we have so many awards and have, at this point generated over 300 million for our clients and partners in our own campaigns.
Wow.
It's by having a mountain of evidence. The mountain of evidence just naturally pulls people in because they want that result. So I always say this, the self-education industry is exploding from 400 million a day to $1 billion a day by 2025. That's Forbes.com has said that statistic. Okay, so that's not a random statistic. So by 2025, it's going to grow to $1 billion a day. Now think about that. Why is that? Well, traditional education, quite frankly, is broken at best.
Yeah.
Okay, unless you're going to be a neurosurgeon or attorney. Okay, but most cases, traditional educational path, people go to school, they get a degree to then get a job, and it's general, or it's not even related to what they went to get a degree for, which is even worse. So they just spent, $100 grand or 150 grand getting a degree to have a job, to get stuck in a dead end job that they're going to be miserable with. That's a broken model, in my opinion.
True.
For me, I never wanted to be stuck in that box. Coming out of college, I realized there's no job that's going to pay me $1 million a year. It's just not going to happen. With my degree, it's not going to happen. There was no path there. So I had to become an entrepreneur. The second reason why I believe that self-education is exploding to $1 billion a day is because trial and error doesn't work either. People realize that, trial and error is great, but do you have the ability to withstand the storm of trial and error? Can you take the blows and the hits of trial and error? Do you have the budget to hang with trial and error? Most people don't. Most people fold like a deck chair. Okay, so that's number two. Trial and error is not the fastest path. And number three, why self-education is exploding to $1 billion a day, people are waking up to this realization that they need to find people who have specialized knowledge and results in a very specific field. So think about that for yourself as you're listening to this. What are the results that you have in your life or business that other people are envious of or want? If you have desirable outcomes and experiences and results for your life and the life of those you serve, other people will pay you for that.
Easy. Yeah.
And it's real simple. So I would say you want to embrace the results that you've been able to produce in your experience of life and business. And then you want to leverage the results that you've been able to help other people reproduce.
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. I mean, very well answered. I mean, this is dumping in a lot of value and gold for all the people who are listening. Appreciate that, brother. Thank you so much, Brian. Really getting so much value out of it. We need to re-listen and kind of take notes and start implementing this into our businesses. Like freaking awesome stuff, Brian. Let's get to the next question, brother. I mean, you've been like one of the most cutting edge marketing agencies in the entire world, right? So can you talk a little bit more about like your tech stack? How does that look like tools you use to manage your clients' projects for productivity?
Yeah, I mean, we use all types of stuff. So we use Slack, we use Basecamp. I've been using Basecamp for over a decade. So we use Basecamp pretty heavily in our business.
Wow.
Love the platform. It does take some getting used to in the beginning, like everything does, right? I mean, everything that's new is going to take some getting used to. For some things, we use Slack for certain teams. And then other things, we use Basecamp. Primarily use Basecamp and then Slack as a secondary tool. So that's kind of how we run the operations of the business. And then teams are involved in respective brands and respective campaigns. Outside of that, we use a whole slew of different technologies, from email to tech to funnels to messaging. There's a huge stack of different types of tools and software we use. There's no one fits all platform. The reality is that there's nothing that solves every problem. Unfortunately, you have to do some duct taping. It's a heck of a lot better when I started than when I started. It's actually a heck of a lot better than even in 2013 when we were using other inferior platforms than ClickFunnels. Really, I've been happy with, and I'm looking forward to ClickFunnels 2.0, which I'll be interviewing Russell about here in December. But I'm really happy that that they're continuing to advance the development of that platform to make it better for everyone.
True.
So,
Yeah,
so
we're
to
looking
answer
forward
your
to
question, we use a lot of tech for technology in terms of running and managing our teams. It's primarily Basecamp or Slack, and we also use Voxer for higher level communication in terms of like chat. So we use Voxer, we use Zoom calls, but we use Voxer because sometimes you could type a message and it doesn't get interpreted the right way, right?
Yeah.
Or you're not sure how to ask it, right? So I give my clients and partners the flexibility to be able to use another channel to be able to voice rather than sending me a voicemail or jumping on a call, right? When we're in development cycles, we're typically in the 30, 60, or 90-day process, and we've got to be, firing on all cylinders, right?
True.
And so you can't get on a Zoom call every time you need to answer a question. It's
True. Yeah.
not productive. The other thing we do is really important is we applied the concept of decades into days, which is a model that Tony Robbins mastered, which is Tony Robbins does most of his transformational work in the course of 4 days. That's how we build out campaigns with partners and clients. We'll do what we call content workshops, where we spend 3 to 4 days together and we are creating collectively as a group. That's what I have found that moves the needle more than anything else. Rather than getting on Zoom calls for an hour, 2 hours here, there, actually being physically together, there's a different dynamic that happens when we're in the presence of one another. It's different. There's a tangible difference, and so that's the way that I prefer to work, is that in that immersive environment where we're just everybody's solely focused on the task at hand, and you are able to eliminate every other thing that gets in the way, the obstacle that gets in the way, or the distraction, right? The text messages, the Facebook messages, this, that, and the next thing. And you can just focus, right? And I think focus is vital for success. I've had many clients where they know the businesses that we have, and they know the partnerships we have, and they know the team that we have, and they understand that we're busy. And I've had many of them say, where we're, in a content workshop, we're spending 3 days together, 4 days together, whatever it might be, whatever they need. And they say, man, you haven't looked at your cell phone once. You haven't checked your email. You're so present. How is that possible? And it's like, well, that's why I do it this way, is because we need you and I need us to be present, just like we're present here that I am with you. I'm not checking my phone. I'm not looking at something else that's going on. We're having a conversation and we're talking about the topic at hand. And then when we're done, we can move on and go on to our day. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's like the best productive way to kind of get stuff done, especially working with clients and having the output which you desire. That's beautiful, Brian. Let's get to the next question, brother. You've been like a 9-figure entrepreneur who's done over $300 million for your clients, and you combine. How does your daily routine for the success looks like? Like, do you personally follow routines?
I do. I created what I call my morning rhythms. I'm not going to have time to go into that right now, but I have 6 specific things that I do when I wake up in the morning, most mornings. And a lot of it has to do with gratitude and state shifting to get into the right vibration, is what I say. But I call them morning rhythms. And so I believe that how you start your day is how the day takes shape and takes form. And I think it's vitally important. I served Tony Robbins back 2013 at one of his major events, and I was a runner for him, actually. And one of the things we had to do is we had to go pack up his room in New York, where his event was in Jersey. It was one of the most amazing blessings that I had the opportunity to do, because when I was packing his room up to get everything back, a buddy of mine and I were doing that, and I saw he had a piece of paper and he had written out his morning rhythms, what I call morning rhythms. He might call rituals, but he had them written out and he filled them in, and he had that and he filled it in. And so to think, I think it's really important that as we lead, We practice what we preach, and we preach what we practice. And I think that's what Tony is living and breathing what he preaches. And that's an example, right? Most people might think, oh yeah, well, Tony says that, but does he actually do it? Well, I'm actually a testament to him doing it, because, and it was impressive, right? It was actually pretty awesome to see him still doing that activity of printing a piece of paper and writing in how many minutes he did the rebounder, for example, which he does.
Wow.
Or throat therapy, because he's, exhausted his voice, his voice box over the years. So I think it's important. Your rhythms are important. I think shifting your state is vital. It's all to do with energy management. And so I think all of us are going to have a little bit of a different rhythm. I think you need to find one that fits you. I have mine, what's called morning rhythms, that eventually I'll create a product around, but it's how to get into a higher state of vibration, and how to get out of your own way, how to get out of stuck negative energy. Because you don't create well in a space of stuck negative energy. Beyond that, you don't get very far as well when you're spiritually stuck either. That's a whole nother conversation, but most people are stuck and they don't even know why. And a lot of that has to do with energy. A lot of that also has to do with spiritual things as well.
True.
So
yeah.
a whole other conversation, but
yeah, we're quite looking forward for your routines.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. We are definitely excited to be a part of your upcoming products, which is going to be around your routines, and our audience would love to go deep into that. And Bryan, you've been one of those people who kind of see like, MBA is not my thing. I'm an entrepreneur, and you jump off, right? So what will be a number one suggestion if there is an opportunity to go back and suggest a 20-year-old to yourself? What will be a number one suggestion for yourself or someone who's just getting started?
Probably the biggest advice is find a mentor who has the results that you want, the life you want, not just the resources, because resources are a tool, but who has the actual impact, who actually has the lifestyle, the freedom that you want to create your life to be, right? I knew that I didn't want a life where I was stressed out, working 120 hours a week, and never have time to spend with my family. That's not a desire I wanted. Some people want that desire. Gary Vee, I think, is one of them. He likes to hustle. He likes to work hard. He likes to, be working. I like freedom. I like to be able to take a month and go to Hawaii for a month or two at a time with my family. I have the freedom to do that now. But I architected that experience, right? So I think one is think about the life that you want to create and that you want to live more than money. And I want to think deeper than that, think impact, and think what's the impact of the work that you do, and how does that ripple out into other people's lives. And then find a mentor, find someone who has the results that you want, and find a way to get around them. Find a way to pay them for their time. People that are at that level are not just going to give away their time for free. They're not just going to, they're busy typically. People that are typically successful are typically busy. They go hand in hand. So find a way. Like when I started, right, my mentor at the time wasn't even offering it. But I said, hey, like, I want to pay you. I need more of this. And I kind of made him an offer that he couldn't refuse. And he said, yes, right? I was persistent. You were persistent with getting me here today, which I'm grateful for. Thank you for doing that, right? I mean, in life, being persistent is vital for being successful, right?
Yeah.
If you stop and you don't keep going, then you're inevitably going to fail. True. Now, failure is not a bad thing, because we need to adopt failure as entrepreneurs, because we're constantly needing to be in a state of pivot. Yeah. Because you're making adjustments as you're going on your journey. You're never just clear sailing as an entrepreneur. You've got constant pivots and adjustments that you're going to need to make as things arise, things that are not necessarily always in your control. So a few things there, right? It's like embrace failure, fail forward fast as possible. Because I can tell you now, being in my career where I'm at now, I failed a lot in the beginning, and I had a lot of disappointing situations, from relationships to campaigns to everything. And now it's become a lot easier because I've gone through a lot of those failures. But if I never failed forward, I would have stopped.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And above all else, constantly really dig deep into what is the driving force that's causing you to become larger, become better, become bigger than you currently are. Right. For me, I died in 2003 and came back to life. The doctor said I was a living miracle. Never saw anyone with my severe condition live, let alone be able to even comprehend what he was speaking. And so for me, it's like, after dying, come back to life, it gives you a different perspective. Right. I have like this death perspective where, I believe my life's a miracle. I believe God put me here for a reason. And I believe I have specific assignments that are necessary to be fulfilled before I go on and leave my physical body. That is a driving force beneath the surface that a lot of people don't see. But if you were to put me head to head with someone who does exactly what I do, I have a stronger driving force than someone who just does the same similar thing.
Yeah.
So think deeper about what is that driving force for you. I will say that of the hundreds of clients that I've served over the years, those with a strong driving force that are pulling them into the future are the ones that are going to be more successful than the ones that are not.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful, Brian. I mean, I appreciate that. I mean, you know your purpose, and I think that's really important as an entrepreneur, and as you evolve as an entrepreneur. That's beautiful. We have a couple of more questions before we wrap up, brother. So your life's biggest achievement so far, and any next bigger goals?
Yep. And we'll have to wrap here soon. So I would say getting married, having a baby, by far, biggest blessings. There was a point in time when I was single, and all the men around me were saying, you're going to be more blessed on the other side of marriage. Get married. What are you waiting for? And they challenged me to think outside of my current reality. And it wasn't until in my spirit that I was prompted, is what I call them prompting, is from God. I was prompted to get married. I was prompted to take that next step of faith. And it was very vivid for me because it wasn't until I had received the prompting directly from God, not man, and that's a whole nother conversation, but I received a prompting from him that I'd be more blessed on the other side of marriage than I would single. And that day that I received that word, I bought the ring, and literally within hours, God fulfilled on his word by sending us a client that cut a check for over $150,000.
Wow.
That was direct confirmation. Direct confirmation. I don't know how more direct you can get. Now, since that point, a lot of other blessings came. But I mean, talk about answered prayer, right? You'll be more blessed on the other side of marriage. Take the next step. Get in the game. And then and then the next directive was let's get this party started, which then within 2 weeks we were pregnant of getting married. And then we had our beautiful daughter, Victoria Rose, who is, a blessing that I couldn't comprehend when I was single. I always wanted kids, but you can't really comprehend it until you have them. And now we have another one that's on our way. So those are the things that I'm most proud of. I'm most it's God, it's family, and it's business, and it's really in that order of priority for me. And by having that order of priority has been proven to be successful.
Yep, absolutely, brother. We are so happy for you. Thank you so much for that. And I mean, Brian, you're such an amazing person when it comes to funnels. Where can our audience find you mentoring?
Yeah, absolutely. So BryanDelaney.com. That's Bryan with a Y. I always say you got to have a Y. Super important. And Delaney, D-U-L. A lot of people will pronounce it with D-E, but it's D-U-L, Delaney. Dulaney. So if you go to briandelaney.com, or if you don't want to try to figure all this out yourself, if you want to hire the best of the best and the team of people that are behind me to help you, then we have an agency like we've mentioned today, and that's at perfectfunnelsystem.com. And we'd be happy to have a conversation to see if you're a good fit for what we do.
That's beautiful. Guys, you know what to do. Get in touch with Bryan and you'll definitely have good time. I mean, that's a beautiful articulation, Bryan. We really love and enjoy the value you have actually dropped here. Any last word before we conclude the total podcast session for today?
Any last words?
Yep.
Get in the game, put one foot in front of the other, and just keep moving forward. On your journey, you're going to have challenges. Embrace them. The way you deal with them is by having people in your corner that can help steer your ship in the right direction. But if you never get started, if you never get going, you'll never realize the potential that's possible. And listen to your inner promptings. Probably my best advice. When I was asked by Russell Brunson to share the secrets to my success to his highest level mastermind members, I talked about being the listening to the voice of God and listening to the inner promptings and being guided on the journey. God's word will always trump man's wisdom every day. So listen to those inner promptings, press into those inner promptings that are trying to guide you on this journey. I've had so many of them at this point that when I acted upon them, there was fruit. But the fruit didn't always come immediately. Like when I got married, that fruit was immediate. But there was an example, there was times and situations, many of them at this point, where I was prompted to act, and then 30, 60, 90, 12 months out, I realized why I was being prompted to take action.
Yeah.
So learn to listen internally and within, and learn to tap into how God's trying to guide you into the future to be successful. Because I do truly believe that God wants all of us to be successful and to experience abundance, but we need to listen and we need to act. Sitting on the sidelines isn't going to serve anyone, including you, those you're called to serve, or God for that matter. So that's my best advice. Listen to those inner promptings. Let God guide you in this journey. It's going to far surpass man's wisdom, but it will take some time to understand how to interpret, how to listen properly, how to ask the right questions. And that is that's different for everyone, right? I have a formula that I have been able to, experience and create for myself, but you might have one that works for you that's different, and that's fine too.
Yeah.
We all have a different experience of God and a different perspective on that, that whole conversation. But to leave that conversation out is you're doing yourself an injustice. We are spiritual beings living a physical experience, and until you come to that realization, you won't even think about the spiritual ramifications of your decisions that you make every day. So press into that for whatever that looks like for you. Life will be vastly different when you learn to trust the voice within and be guided on your journey.
Yeah, that's a beautiful message, Bryan, especially for entrepreneurs. They need to kind of listen to themselves, what's happening for inner themselves, which is absolutely beautiful. And definitely that's an amazing message. Again, Bryan, thank you so much for this amazing opportunity. It was definitely insane having you on, and all the value you dropped is insanely helpful for all the people who actually listen to this podcast. So guys, stay tuned for the next interview. This is me, the Nikhil Sai, and Bryan signing off for today. I'll be back with another amazing 2 Comma Club interview. Peace, guys. Bye, Bryan.